Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Mental Complex here, and today I've got another knife review / knife overview to share with you guys that I've actually done like twice already. This is the Benchmade 940 in the -1 variant, the carbon fiber and S90V blade. This knife has been around for quite a while. It is very well known, but it's one of those knives that it's like, despite this being a variant of a knife that I've already reviewed, this is such a famous model. I mean, I should at least talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do today. This knife was sent to me by my good friend at Eric B. Like on Instagram. He sent quite a few knives actually in the past, so please give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons, so thank you so much for supporting me during this time. If you'd like to check out my Patreon and get your hands on some of those stickers, there is, of course, a link down in the description to support me in the world to me. So let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the Benchmade 940 is about 7.8 inches overall. Blade length coming in an impressive 3.4 inches and cutting edge coming in just slightly shorter, maybe 3.3 inches. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, Rat 1, coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, the Spyderco PM2, Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3, Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? Well, it's a Benchmade knife and it's running on phosphor bronze. Truthfully, that's it can be a luck of the draw kind of thing. I have handled 940s that just feel abysmal. I've also handled 940s that are impossibly smooth. There is such a difference between that's the thing with Benchmade. You know, it's why I always tell people, like, despite Benchmade's seeming improvement on quality control, you still have to kind of go into a shop and handle one, because it's possible that some, retailers will have a 940 that's been around for years and it'll have an old school gritty action, and then you might get one that's a little bit smoother. This one's pretty good. I'd give it an 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10 versus all the other 940s I've handled. The thing with a lot of Benchmades, and especially it seems to be the case with 940s, is for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the fact, the combination, the cartridge liner and the thin handle scales and the small washers and the small thin blade, right? I don't know if that has to do with it. It seems like a lot of 940s have blade play no matter what. Like, if you want to get them nice and smooth, this one's kind of in between. I've given it a little bit of a crank on the pivots where it's not completely fall shut, but I can still, if I can whip it into place and I can still do the reverse flick and the forward flick just fine, that's about how I want it. But I want to get it with no blade play. This guy still has an ever so slight amount of blade play, and I don't like that. Truthfully, with the 940, I've just come to accept it. The axis lock seems to hold the blade in place despite it being wiggly and giving the impression that there might be room for disengagement. I don't think that this blade can disengage. I just don't like blade play. I want the knife to be smooth and I want it to be completely solid. And it seems like, it's pretty rare to find a 940 that has no blade play. They are out there. I have definitely handled them, that have no blade play. But getting one that has no blade play and is absolutely drop smooth, if you've got one of those, congratulations. In my experience, they're pretty hard to find, but that's just the truth about these knives. So the action's good. It's very easy to engage the thumb stud, despite me failing twice, and the axis lock is the axis lock, so you guys kind of know by now. It's just it's easy to manipulate. The reverse flick on this guy, it's one of those where you kind of have to get the meat of your finger up underneath there, but you can absolutely do it. That's fine. Lots of fidget factor with any axis lock knife. Let's go ahead and get out my handy dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic stubby driver, two items that are extremely inexpensive and extremely recommendable. You can find them down in the Amazon store at the beginning of that I reference at the beginning of every single video. Just pull up in the store and look for knife maintenance. Like many Benchmades, the pivot is actually a T10, which is great. I like that. T10 right there. And then for whatever reason, like many Benchmades. The rest of the screws are T6, which I don't like. Not a deal breaker, but you know, T6, you got to be careful, especially with Benchmade. I for whatever reason, taking apart Benchmade knives with T6, at least in the past, used to be just a gigantic pain because they would have too much Loctite in there, and they'd strip them. And you know, Benchmade's got an excellent warranty. People like to call that the butterfly tax, right? That's a bandwagon thing. One person said that, you know, one or two people said that, who might have more of an idea what they're talking about. And then the vast majority of people who repeat that, they're not, you know, to them it just means you should pay more for it because it is a Benchmade. They're just repeating it. It's just a bandwagon thing, right? The truth is a lot of the extra that you pay for goes towards the warranty, in my opinion. The warranty is excellent. Benchmade has one of, if not the best warranties out there in terms of a knife. Now, that being said, does it still seem like Benchmade is a little bit high on price versus not just other knives out there? If you're comparing Benchmade's prices to overseas manufactured knives, it's not a comparison, right? I can get M390 in carbon fiber from a Chinese company for $100 less. Okay, but it's manufactured in China. So I mean, like, if that's what you're looking for, you don't care about where it's manufactured, right? And you put your value there, then yeah, just go buy that. But you know, again, it's like I've made this argument a million times. To say that Benchmade is being greedy because their prices are more than a knife that's manufactured in China is not an argument. It's just like, hey, this thing that's manufactured in an area where it costs less to manufacture, it costs less than this other item that's manufactured in an area where it costs more to manufacture it. Okay. But, that being said, does Benchmade seem to have higher prices, even considering that they've got a great warranty? Higher prices than other U.S. manufactured knives using similar materials? Yeah, seems like they're another $25 to $30 up from where some of those other companies are. That area in there is what people are referring to, or the ones that know that. That's what the seeming butterfly tax is. Sometimes. There are some knives that they do, you know, that are much closer to where they should be. I am, for example, fully okay about where they have the price on the Benchmade Super Freak. Completely okay with that. But there are other knives, you know, in Benchmade's line where it's like, what the heck? Where did you come up with that? The Autocrat, I don't know where they're coming up with $410 for the Autocrat. But anyways, we're talking about that because this knife has, you know, that element there. You know, the biggest problem with this knife is it's a legendary model. For anybody who doesn't know, the Benchmade 940 has been called the greatest EDC folding knife of all time many times. Now, there have been a lot of models out there that have been called that, right? And truthfully, there's probably at least one person on the planet, you know, for every knife thinking that that's the great. What I'm saying is that massive populations of people have said the Benchmade 940 is one of, if not the greatest EDC folding knife of all time. Why? Because of the overall profile, the amount of blade and cutting edge that you get for overall length and for weight, right? Let's go ahead and talk about that. We're on that topic. Carry profile up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3, two knives that have awkward carry profiles nobody ever complains about. Length, about the same as the Para 3. Length, nowhere near the same length as the PM2. And height, yeah, it annihilates both of them because it's so much smaller. Even in terms of overall thickness, we're not looking at anything crazy. It's exactly the same as the Spyderco Para 3. The blade stock thickness, I'm going to guess, is something like 120 thousandths. We'll go ahead and check that here real quick. Blade stock thickness, 125 thousandths, so Benchmade Griptilian territory. And then it is a pretty, you know, narrow blade. It's not a tall blade. The scales are, as most people know, carbon fiber all the way through except for a small cartridge liner. A lot of elements here reducing the weight. So, on this particular version, the weight comes in at 2.33 ounces. Fantastic, right? Benchmade bug out fans, well, the bug out, but see, here's the thing. I love this knife a million times better than the bug out because I don't have to deal with those cheap, hollowed out Grivery scales. I don't care about how much cutting edge I'm getting for reducing another 0.75 ounces on an item that's already got an excellent carry profile and is already lightweight to begin with, right? The G10 version of this, the aluminum version of this, the carbon fiber version of this, and even the titanium version of this are already small enough and lightweight enough that I don't feel that it's necessary for me to reduce the weight further and have to deal with those cheap Gryvery scales. I'm sorry, Benchmade bug out fans, but that's the truth. I know it's going to get brought up. I don't like the scales on the Benchmade bug out. This is much preferable to me. Absolutely. The sound of deployment, right, is not being reverberated in a cheap scale. There's no cheap, hollow, clicky feeling, and it looks nicer. That's just how I feel about that. To me, the 940 is a better knife than the Benchmade bug out, even considering that the blade geometry is not quite as slicey as the bug out. It's just the 940 is a superior knife. I think a lot of the hype with the Benchmade bug out versus the 940 just comes from, well, the bug out's new and the 940's been around forever, and a lot of us just want a new thing. You know, bug out's a great knife and it's super lightweight, and if that's your goal, to get as much cutting edge as possible out of an ultra lightweight design, and reduce the weight as much as you possibly can, the bug out's probably for you. But if you guys were wondering, literally any variant of the 940 I would take head and shoulders all day over any variant of the bug out. I just would. Since we are on the topic of the blade, so we've got this reverse Tanto blade with some nice, a whole bunch of cutting edge, right? There's a flat that carries out maybe, I don't know, 30% the length of the blade. And there's a lot of meaningful thickness carried out here. Something that this blade does definitely have over the bug out blade is that there's a lot more material out here at the tip. So the blade is substantially more durable, whatever the steel is, you know. The cutting edge, however, is nowhere near as thin behind the edge as the bug out, and actually it's fairly thick. I mean, now it's not thick behind the edge. I mean, it's still, like, as far as an EDC blade goes, it's going to slice, it's going to cut, right? Are you going to be able to skin an apple, you know, so that you can, I mean, whatever you do with apple skins, I'm not really sure why people do that, but no. But, I mean, yeah, is this going to do all your EDC tasks? It certainly will. You know, that's something that the bug out has better slicing geometry, but it's not as robust a blade. You will absolutely damage the tip of the bug out blade well before you damage the 940 tip. This particular one, the carbon fiber variant, or the -1 variant, comes in S90V. I actually really like S90V on this knife. S90V is not a tough steel. What it's known for is pretty good corrosion resistance. It definitely is a stainless steel, and insane edge retention, right? Not as good as S110V, not as good as Maximate, but really, really good edge retention. So, you know, S90V, in my opinion, belongs on a knife that is not going to be used in a setting where you're going to be beating it. This is not a hard use knife. You know, can you go out and really push on it and process wood? Yeah, probably, but this isn't a hard use knife like the same way that the Cold Steel American Lawman is a hard use knife, right? This is more of a general EDC knife, so I think S90V is completely welcome, since you're going to be cutting things like cardboard, paper, tape, maybe some rope, maybe some rubber here or there. Yeah, I mean, edge retention, you know, just maximum edge retention or really, really good edge retention is an element that I would very much want to have. I really like the tumbled finish that Benchmade applies. Really, really like that tumbled finish. I wish they'd do that more often. It's a darker tumbled finish than I see oftentimes on even their other blades that are tumbled. I don't know why it looks different in this case, but it just really looks good. The satin finish, I'm just kind of tired of satin finish all the way around on folding knives, and I realize that the tumbled finish is not necessarily new or anything like that. I just don't like satin finishes as much. I just like my blades to look like, you know, maybe they've already been used just a little bit, right? It hides scratches a little bit better. There's excellent uniformity there. I think, you know, flaws from the factory come out a little bit more in satin finished blades, and then if you scratch it, it really shows, right? And on top of that, a lot of times corners aren't knocked down as well, but on a tumbled blade, everything is just nicely knocked down. I prefer this blade and the finish on it way, way over the 940-2 or the standard 940. The 940-2 being the G10 and S30V, and the standard being the aluminum and S30V. I just really like that. The blue thumb studs, honestly, I mean, it looks okay. They kind of do that. Like the G10 one has the green ones. The Dash 2001 has the red ones. There's a bunch of different versions of these. I would have just preferred satin hardware, but this is kind of a unique characteristic, or one that is associated with this knife, and it does look pretty good. I don't know if they're anodized aluminum or if they're coated, like if it's steel and then it's like a coating. You can see there once it runs into stuff that it's going to wear off a little bit. It looks like actually maybe Eric Bielak has taken those off and maybe switched them out or adjusted them a little bit. But yeah, you know, it is what it is, and they're easy to engage, and they're not too far into the cutting path. They are a little bit, but that's just fine, right? The cutting edge on this guy looks really, really good. Sometimes on Benchmade knives, you have a little bit of a wonkiness going on with the cutting edge. You have that, well, this one feels a little bit different. I wonder if Eric sharpened this. I don't know. A lot of times with Benchmade knives, you get kind of a toothy edge, and sometimes that can be really beneficial. Sometimes a slightly toothy edge on a steel like S90V and some other steels will actually increase, you know, its cutting efficiency. Like cutting into cardboard with a slightly toothy edge at exactly the right geometry. And how to define that, I can't really say. It's just a feeling thing. But those of you who know what I'm talking about, you'll nod your head. Yeah, it kind of bites into that a little bit better. And it wants to, you know, it helps get the blade started. Sometimes with a perfectly, like that kind of like glassy edge. Sometimes a glassy edge doesn't quite want to bite. And it takes a second. Once it gets going, it's great. But sometimes a toothy edge will bite immediately, and it feels really good. So either way, this edge feels great. Moving on to the carbon fiber scales, everything's nicely knocked down. It's taken this exact same form forever, and it looks nice, but, you know, the 940 and the appearance of the scales and kind of the blockiness of the scales is a little outdated, you know. Truthfully, I you know, really used to have this knife way up high on a pedestal. It was one of my favorite knives of all time, and I still think that it is an excellent knife. As far as a tool goes, this is an excellent tool. I've kind of lost my love for the 940 because, you know, the knife world and you know, what designers and manufacturers have done with aesthetics has just evolved so much that there's just so much out there that's more visually appealing to me than this, you know, with this knife. And a lot of people are going to say, well, it's a tool, you know, it's not necessarily meant to look pretty. It's a tool. If it wasn't meant to look pretty, at least a little bit, they wouldn't add blue thumb studs and put carbon fiber on it, right? It is a tool. It is a knife. Yeah. But aesthetics plays a role with everybody. Some people more than others. But with me, it absolutely plays a role. And I just, you know, this looks okay. I think, you know, this is one of the most aesthetically appealing forms of the 940, but I'm just a little bit bored with it. Everything does fit together nicely, though. I mean, the fit and finish on the scales and everything feels great. Axis lock on this guy is nice and smooth and, you know, springy, I guess. Nice large stop pin there. No shouldering, but lots of contact. Like I said, just a little teeny tiny bit of blade play, but I can definitely feel it. Something I really don't like in the fit and finish department, and this seems to be the case with all of them, look at the screw heads. They stick so far out. There's a lot of lint in there. I wonder if I can get some of that out of there and help you guys see a little bit better what it is that I'm trying to point out. Yeah, the screw heads in there are sticking way up. Now, it's not that big of a deal, but, you know, if this pivot starts to back itself out and the blade starts to push over to one side, those screws, I think, will actually contact the blade. And I see that on the Dash 1. I don't see it on the aluminum one, if I'm remembering correctly, and I don't think it was actually a problem on the 2001, but the G10 and the carbon fiber models, the consistent production versions, for whatever reason, those screws stick all the way. I don't like that. Just use the right length of screws. Like, what the heck, you know? It's just bothers me. It's not a problem. Everything's tightened down correctly. This one is completely centered, so it's fine. This clip is not the clip that comes with it, but I'll admit it really works well. That's the clip that first came on the bug out. The standard clip, I think, is it's just the standard Benchmade pocket clip. This clip or the Benchmade deep carry clip, I think, are the best clips for this knife, whether you go black or satin finish. I don't mind a longer clip. The nice thing about this one is it's so short that there's no hint of a hot spot whatsoever. I think with the bigger one, it's not necessarily a hot spot. It's just you're going to notice it a little bit more than this one. Either are fine. Benchmade has two of the best clips that are out there on these American production knives. Absolutely. T6 screws on there. It might catch, right? It might catch a little bit, that bill on something, but Benchmade's really good with their... I mean, like, Benchmade is really good with spare parts. I have bent clips out. I have strip screws. I have lost screws. And Benchmade, for the most part, goes, all right, we'll send you some more. And that's great. I love that. Benchmade also does a good job with their D-shaped pivots. That is a captive pivot, which means you can adjust the screw on the show side scale, freely, and you don't have to worry about the other side spinning. So that's great. Ergonomically, I mean, yeah, for a small knife that's got a really simple handle shape, I mean, I'm very much aware of where, I'm supposed to put my hands and what's available to me. Yeah, I can move around a little bit. I don't feel super confined. I've always been confused about why Benchmade puts jimping back here and not up here. My size of hand is slightly larger than average, but I want to do this. So I want jimping back here. This feels weird to me, but okay, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Ergonomically, it's fine. It's nothing like, absolutely just out of this world, but it's fine. So, this knife has been around forever. It's still for sale, and it's still for sale for like the same price, right? The standard 940 comes in at what, 175 bucks. The 940-1 comes in at 180, $182, right? G10 and S30V. Truthfully, I think both of those are a little high. I think they could back off to about 160 on those. This version still comes in at a whopping $275. Oh my gosh. We're looking at carbon fiber. We're looking at S90V. This knife is made in the United States, and it has the legendary Benchmade warranty on it. That being said, I think there's still at least $30 over the mark. There's going to be a whole bunch of people that jump in and go, that should be no more than $180 because I can get carbon fiber and M390 from China. Again, if you're comparing it with a Chinese knife, it doesn't matter if you can get the same materials from a Chinese manufacturer. This costs more to make. They have to deal with that, right? So buy what you want, but let's not, I'm not going to agree with anybody who says this should be less than $200. No, I think it's fair that this is over a $200 knife, but really this should be more around the $240 mark, maybe, $230 to $240. I think that's completely and totally fair for this knife. I've never understood where they come up with $275. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This is, however, an excellent tool. For anybody looking at this and going, $280, whatever. Is it a good tool? Do you like the carry profile? Do you like the blade? Do you like the handle? All that stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, this remains to be one of the very best EDC options that exists. I mean, and on top of that, it's classy looking. The carbon fiber and the tumbled S90V with the little blue accents. Oh yeah, this is still like definitely one of the best EDC options that's out there. You get so much cutting edge for such a small, this knife can be carried in khakis, it can be carried in jeans, it can be carried in athletic shorts, skinny jeans, whatever. This is a great knife, and this is a full-size knife. I can get my hands all the way around this, but I think it's appropriate in a lot more settings too. 940, is it still one of the best EDC options of all time? Absolutely. Is it worth $275? No. I can recommend the 940 to you guys, but not the 940-1. And this review isn't anything that anybody hasn't said before. I am late to the game on the 940-1. There's lots of other reviews out there that have said exactly the same thing, and I'm in the same, I'm in the same boat with that. This is a cool knife. I really like how it looks. I'm a little bored with the design. It's really overpriced, but it's still a great tool. Buy the 940-1. That's the version that I think that makes the most sense. It's still a little overpriced, but not as overpriced as this one. But still cool. This is going to go on my Benchmade knives playlist, so you can check it out there along with some other Benchmade models. Anyways, that's going to be pretty much it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.